Energized Living Today. This is Cindy Kubika, and I am so excited about today because we have very special guests here. Sheila and Marcus Gillette are joining us, and of course Sheila is going to be channeling Theo. Theo is a group of 12 archangels, and it was really interesting because, you know, I've been asking the question a lot about the forever nature of our relationships, which is really a topic that's going to be in a new book that Sheila and Marcus are working on right now. And we started talking about this, and I said, you know, this is an important topic because, as many of you know, my dad keeps trying to transition, although he keeps missing his off-ramp. And he's frustrated about that, but he's still here. And he was very close to transitioning. And I know many of you are losing your parents or close to losing your parents. I know Sheila, you know, she has a story about her parents transitioning, and so does Marcus. And even Ferris. I mean, you know, we all lose people in our lives, but do the relationships really end? And that's what we're here to talk about today. So before we get started, I just want Ferris to come on and talk about the housekeeping notes of what to do if you're joining us on Zoom. And then in just a moment, for those of you who are joining us on Facebook Live, I will give you the housekeeping notes on that. So Ferris?
Hi, y'all. Look down at the bottom of your screen. And if there's not a toolbar there, if you take your cursor and scroll down, it'll pop up. You'll see a chat icon. Click on that, and it'll open up chat for you. And you'll see a Q&A icon. If you have a question that you don't want to answer, if you don't want to come on camera and answer it, click on the Q&A box and put your questions in there. You can use the chat, but please put your questions in the chat box because, in the Q&A box, because that way we're not likely to miss them. If you do want to come on and on screen and ask a question, there's a little hand down there. Just click on that hand and it'll raise your hand, and we'll try to get a few people at least on air. And Cindy, I think that's got it all. I may have a little tech things to do during the show, so if my screen goes blank, just pay no attention to the man behind the screen.
That's right. And I want to say, you know, these questions, please keep them relative to everybody. And, you know, questions about people that are transitioning, people of the other side. And, you know, some of the questions that we actually talked about when we started talking about the forever nature of relationships are, what about the caregiver? How do you care for yourself? How do you gracefully help someone ease into a transition if they're stubborn, if they're staying or feel like they need to stay? And sometimes that happens. We always said that my grandmother, Wallen, left in the middle of the night because nobody wanted her to leave, and it was keeping her here, and she really didn't want to be here anymore. So, you know, what can we do there? What about end-of-life care? What about communicating soul to soul? These are all questions that Sheila and Marcus are going to be talking about, as well as Theo. So keep the conversation around these questions so we really can involve everyone. Now, for those of you who are on Facebook Live, if you have a question, I've got my other computer right over here so I can see it. And, you know, that way, and Ferris will also be monitoring too. So between the two of us, we will catch the ones that are on Facebook Live. Let us know if there's any challenges that you're having, any technical issues there as well. And then Marcus is going to be reading the questions that you key in on Zoom. And I want to say, you know, it's really cool when I get when I channel information. And I've been getting a series of books to read lately. And one of the books that I was told to go back and read again is Ask and It Is a Given. And the first thing, I start reading the beginning, and Elizabeth starts talking about you, Sheila, and coming to see you, and how you kind of started their whole journey. So you've been doing this for a very long time. You have been such a key person in my life for helping me develop my own skills of channeling, and many other people too in the classes that we've taken. So I just love your work. And again, I appreciate this conversation, especially at this time in my life. Both of you have gone through it. So I just want to start the conversation by having both of you just share your stories of the transitions, of your family members.
Well, thanks for having us, Cindy. It's great to be with you again. And this is a huge conversation for many, many, many of us, as we find in our community, and I know you do in yours. And in 2013 and 14, in my immediate family, we had 12 people transition within about 18 months.
12?
Yes, so it was quite intense. I have 3 married children, and they had extended family members that passed, as well as my children's father and my mother. And so I'm very well aware. My father passed in 2000, but we've been through hospice, and through the experience of being with them in the process of their leaving. And I remember my mother said, well, I don't remember ever doing this before. There was this kind of anticipation and maybe a little fear at first, before it was her time, her transitional period of time. But I had an exquisite experience with her, sitting by her bedside, and my youngest daughter was with me. And the hospice chaplain, who happened to be an American Indian, who happened to be a medicine man and also a Catholic priest. So what a fabulous fellow this guy is, David. And he brought his drum in and would drum, and he let Mom drum with him. She loved that. And so we were sitting there, and she sat straight up in bed. This is 2 weeks before she passed. And she sat straight up in bed and started speaking, channeling, if you would. Very clearly, she was saying what a wonderful life she had and talking about what a happy life she had lived. And then she started describing the other world where she was going. So she was walking in both worlds, and it was a phenomenal experience. She spoke stream of consciousness for over an hour.
Wow.
And it was such a gift to us. And I turned to David and I said, have you ever had this experience before? And he said, not in 30 years, I haven't. But he said he was aware of the chief coaches did the same thing before he transitioned out of his body. So he had heard of it, but he had never experienced it. And it was such a gift she gave us, because it illuminated for us what she was seeing. And she was very descriptive, and it was just a gorgeous experience. And then she, like your father, we had all of our family come and see her. And in that moment, we thought it would just be 1 or 2 days before she passed, and she rallied as well. And what I understand from the hospice workers, that's not unusual, because they get a new sense of life with all the love that's surrounding them. So I was expecting that the very next day she would go into her phase of unconsciousness and then passing. Nope. Bright and early awake, eating breakfast, having a great conversation, and it was like, okay, and 2 weeks later she did transition. But that gift she gave me, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. And we were scrambling to get our cell phones recording it because it was so profound. And David finally, he had a new cell phone. He didn't know how to use it. So we were like, oh my God, we got to get this recorded. And so he did get some of it recorded, but it was just a lovely, lovely gift. And like you, Cindy, it was like, what is she waiting for? You know, and she had two sisters, one 16 months older and one 16 months younger. And the older one passed 6 months before she, and then she went, and then her younger sister passed a year later. And they left the world as they came into it. The older one, then my mother, they were like almost like triplets. And but I kept thinking, she's waiting for my aunt to go with her, but she couldn't wait any longer.
You should probably add that they were 99, 97, and 97.
Oh.
Yes.
So they were ready.
Wow.
Yeah, they had lived beautiful lives. Yeah, very much so.
Amazing, isn't it?
Sheila, had she channeled before, or was this new for her?
No, she was very intuitive. She was very creative. She's an artist and loved decorating and all of those things. So I believe artists they're channeling that, writers and painters, and she did all of that. So she was connected, but nothing like what I do. But my daughter, it was so funny when the chaplain, David, said, no, not in 30 years. She leaned over to him and she goes, David, we come from a long line of channelers. So there was some levity in the moment there. And he was such a gift because he had all of his medicine man and Indian traditional experiences that he talked to us about, as well as Catholicism as he became a Catholic priest, and how that fit together. I mean, it was like, oh, okay. But it blended very well for him, and what a kind man he was, or is, I should say.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And to have that experience, that soul-to-soul connection to someone that's about to transition, and that's, you know, when I went through this experience with my dad, he was there. He was seeing the light. He was talking to mom. He was talking to his mom. In fact, at one time, I told you, Sheila and Marcus, about Dad was talking about mom, and he said, there was a Kleenex box sitting in front of him, and he said, we used to make those years ago. And I said, make what? My sister and I were there. And she said, oh, do you want this? And she took the Kleenex and handed it to him. And he said, oh, you ruined it. And I realized he was talking about making the flowers out of Kleenexes. So I quickly made one for him and I handed it to him. And I said, is this what you're talking about? He said, yes, make me a dozen so I can take them to your mom. And so my sister and I sat there and made a bunch of flowers to take her. And he was saying, who put the light up there? I've never had a light in my room up there. And he was talking to people, and he would be in and out of conversations. I knew that his feet were in both worlds. And you know, the hospice came in and said, you know, your dad, you know, he may not be here till the morning. And we fully expected that. He had the death rattle. He had intermittent breathing where he would stop breathing for 30 to 45 seconds. And then the oddest thing happened where I could feel his oversoul. And I was leaving the room. I had my back as I was leaving the room. I had my back, but I felt it. And my sister went ahead of me, my sisters. And I turned back around and I just looked up above him and I could feel his oversoul. And I just said, are you here to bring him back so he can be better and 100%? Or are you here to give him guidance to go? Because he's so attached to life. He's always been a man that lives life to the fullest. And I said, if he's going to stay, I want him to be whole. I want him to be good with being here. And then I left, not expecting him to be there in the morning on this side. I get in there, he's sitting up going, hey. One of the first things he said is, grab your recorder because I'm a lion. And I said, you're a lion. And yeah, get your camera. And I put it on him, and he goes, "Her, I'm the lion." I'm going, where did that come from? It was just weird. And now here it has been a month, and they thought it was the death rally, and he's still here. And Sheila, this is one thing that I would like to ask Theo later is it because for many years his intention was to be there when he died, and he was so out of it with the pneumonia and everything else that was going on. He was so out of it. He wasn't present. He wasn't completely in his mind because they had him on all these drugs. Now he's completely in his mind, and that's what he wants. He wants to experience the transition
with consciousness.
Yeah.
With consciousness, yes.
That's beautiful.
That's wonderful.
We've had so many unique experiences, Cindy. By the way, it's great to be with you guys. Thank you for having us.
It's so wonderful to have you too, and I want you to share your story.
Yeah, what we're all talking about here is the miracle of life itself, and the birth to birth. As Theo talks about this journey being, we're not dying at all. The form is energy is constant, only the form changes, and this is a miraculous experience that so many listening to this right now can relate to. My story was really interesting. My dad was my best friend. We had an extremely close relationship. I had the opportunity to spend some really good time with him. Probably not as much at the end as I would have liked to, frankly. Because he's in Michigan and we're here in California, but we had some really, really great quality time and great conversations about where he was going. My dad was he was really connected spiritually. And so we'd had the conversations. I was at peace knowing that he was at peace. And we just, were, on the phone every day and what have you. And then we were getting ready. We knew that the time was getting close. We were getting ready to make our reservations on a Sunday afternoon to leave Monday to go to Michigan because I'd received a phone call from my sister who was there. And what ended up happening was unbelievable. Very believable, I guess, to all of us and to our listeners. But what happened was so we went that week and we had the celebration and it was beautiful. It was great. But I said to my mom a few days later, I said, gosh, the only regret I have is I wish I would have been there. And she said, what do you mean? You were? And I said, well, tell me about that. She said, I walked into your father's room and she gave me the time of just after 11 o'clock. I knew the day because it had been 2 days before he passed away. And she told me the day, and I was able to put it together with my going into meditation. But she said that she walked into his room and the first thing he said to her was, Marcus was just here. And this is 2 days before he made his transition. And she said, oh my goodness, well, isn't that interesting? And my mom was very aware that he was, as we've been talking, walking in both worlds and having those kinds of experiences. And this was not an unusual conversation, but it was unusual in the respect that at that very same time that he had the experience, I was in meditation. And we were able to confirm our time frames that, in fact, I was projecting my love to him with a simple message that it's okay to go, Dad. We're doing that soul-to-soul communication that Theo talks about and that you were referencing earlier. And when I was in meditation, which was just after 8 o'clock California time and after 11 o'clock Michigan time, I was just sending him my love. I was just loving on him and just knowing that our relationship was eternal and that it was okay to go, and sure enough, 2 days later he went. But the fact that I was confirmed to have been able to be in my meditation, projecting my love to him with the simple soul-to-soul message that it's okay to go now, Dad. And then he got that. He heard and felt and saw me in the room, which I thought was really fascinating. And it just gives such personal evidence, of course, of the fact that we do survive physical death. I know all of us have had numerous experiences to confirm that in many other ways, but this was a really special opportunity to know that we can have that communication both before and then, of course, after someone makes their transition.
That's so beautiful. I just, as I was thinking about the birth-to-birth process, I realized that, when women go into labor, and Sheila, you'll be able to really identify with this. When a woman goes into labor, a few days beforehand, you get this surge of energy. that is the rally before the birth. And you get all these nesting instincts and you get everything ready for the new life that's about to come in. Well, isn't that what we're doing when we leave?
Yes, and that's what Theo talks about when they talk to people about birth and death. They said it's not death because energy is constant. It's only the form that has changed. So it's a birth to birth. We birth into this human vibration, this human body, and when we're ready to leave it, we birth into our multidimensionality, that experience of all that we are. And so when they started speaking about that, it was like, yeah, that makes more sense, really. And to hold that energy is less fearful too for people who have fear, and many do
Mm-hmm.
because of beliefs and things
Mm-hmm.
that they've held. But as we're talking there, those moments can be very rich. I know my mother's older sister passed, as I said, and we didn't tell her because she would have just relived it because she
Mm-hmm.
had some dementia. But she knew because she was there with her. And she scared one of the little nurses because she had her days and nights mixed up.
Mm-hmm.
And so this little nurse was sitting with her in the night, and she was kind of standing in front of her. And my mother said, "Well, do you see Thelma?" And the little girl says, "Who's Thelma?" She goes, "Oh, my sister. Do you see her?" And the little nurse said, "No." She said, "Well, she's standing right next to you." And this little gal told me, she said, "That really scared me." So she went over and sat down next to Mom, and they continued their conversation. The mom looked at her and she said, "Now do you see her?" This little cute girl said, "No." And she said, "Well, she's standing right there. She's still there." It's like, and the little girl said, "I didn't see her. I didn't know what to say." And I said, "It was just perfectly fine. The gift is that she did. And she was with her, and it made her very happy." So, but there are those stories. And if you just be with it, like you were, Sydney, with your father, it's such a gift, don't you think? It's such a gift.
I felt really this a different kind, and ever since, a different kind of connection with him than I ever have before, because we were estranged for many, many years before he came to live with me. And we didn't have the kind of closeness that the rest of the family had because they were all together up in Michigan. I left home at 16. So I was in my 50s already when he came to live with me. So we had all those missing years and we didn't have the same kind of connection. Now I truly feel that I have a different kind of connection than I ever have with my dad and even my mom after she passed. Mm-hmm. And, a greater understanding of what it is that we are here to do. And it was pretty remarkable. And Dad feels it too, because he'll say, "Do you feel that?" Mm-hmm. And I'll say, "Yes, I do, Dad." And by the way, after he came back, he's paralyzed on one side. And after he came back the next day, I was actually home meditating, and I went back that afternoon. And I was told in the meditation that he would be able to move his right hand that's been paralyzed since 2013. And so I said, "Dad, lift your hand and just see if you can move the fingers." And he started going like this. And I knew, because that's what was the conversation with his oversoul. And I don't know if you can talk to somebody's oversoul or not, but I did. And that was the answer. And today I tested it again, and he can still move it. And that's more movement than he's had since the stroke.
You absolutely can communicate with the oversoul, because when you're communicating with the soul, that's exactly who you're communicating with.
Soul to soul.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's not to take away from the grief that we feel, right. But it eases that pain, I believe. I think often about people that don't believe like we believe, that don't know that the energy of what we are, our soul, is so much bigger than just this physical body, and that it goes on. It's eternal. And energy, it is constant. It's just a choice of what we do, whether we incarnate on the earth or we choose billions of other choices that are there to be chosen. It's a constant. So having that knowledge for myself, even though, yes, we go through the grief, but it's made it softer because we know we can remain connected with them, just as you did soul-to-soul communication with your father. And I know my children have had experiences with their father, who passed just a few months before my mother did, and have experiences with her as well. So it's it's that feeling of continuous connection that allows us to move through the grief in a softer way.
One of the beautiful things that happened is, my dad was in construction all of his life, and he worked for a lot of churches, and he realized in working with them what a racket the churches can be, building, and it's very money driven, and a lot of the things that happen, I won't get into all that, but it really disheartened him as far as his belief system, and he didn't know what to believe, and he didn't have a really religious family. He wasn't, he was born in more of a spiritual family. So he, when he married Mom, she's Catholic, and he kind of tried to go along with that, and then he saw all this, the corporate structure behind the churches, and he was really turned off by it. So he wasn't really connected. So when I said, Dad, do you know that you saw the light? Do you remember seeing the light? And he said, I saw the light. Like there's a real light. Mm-hmm. And I said, yes, Dad, there is. There is a light. And he just went, wow. He just kind of like a kid would do, like, wow. And so this new awakening for him, and maybe that's another reason why he needs to be here a little longer, so he can get some clarity before he transitions. I don't know if that's true, but but his expression, I realized that there was confusion for him.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, Cindy, the soul's going to choose when its perfect time is to leave. We know that, and it's never on necessarily the time frame that our personalities even want. We became very good friends with a client of Sheila's by the name of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who you're probably familiar with.
Really?
And we had an opportunity. This is one of the great joys when 2 or 3 years after Sheila and I got together, or 4 years, whatever it was, we spent a lot of time with Elizabeth, and she used to call Sheila she wanted to talk to the spooks. She would call Theo, and it was so amazing for me as someone who'd read so much of her work and been such a, she had such an impact on my life, and it was just amazing because I remember at one point she said, why am I here? She had 6 strokes. She knew where she was going. She'd done all that research on near-death experience. She was very confirmed about, the eternal nature of her true being, and she just wanted out of that body that wasn't working anymore. And she asked Theo, why am I still here? I just want to go, And Theo said, you still have work to do. Do you know that after that she wrote 2 more books? After 6 strokes, she wrote 2 more books.
Wow.
She was fighting it tooth and nail to stay here. She didn't want to be here anymore, but she wrote 2 more books that became bestsellers after that. And she still had work to do from her bed, and so we just had it was a real blessing and joy for us to be able to go up there and spend quite a bit of time with her for a period of time when we had when we were in town and so forth, and had the opportunity to do so. But I just think that's a great testament to the fact that the soul is going to get its way, whatever its choice is in terms of timing and how we leave too.
Elizabeth was irascible. She's a psychiatrist. She was one of 3 triplets, 3 girls, and spiritual, but not religious. And she didn't like religion at all. And one time we took her, and she'd talk about, no, I don't like religion and all that sort of thing. And then she was written up in an article about being a spiritual teacher.
Well, let me tell the story real quick. So we're in the checkout line in Boston, Massachusetts. We were there doing Theo events in Boston. We were in the checkout line, and the front page of the National Enquirer said spiritual leaders. And there was Billy Graham, there was Robert Schuller, there was Deepak Chopra, and Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was on the cover of this.
Oh, wow.
She could not have been more offended to be in the company. to be considered a kind of a religious leader. She just couldn't believe it, and we took that to her.
We took it to her, and she looked at it and she started laughing. She called her sister in Switzerland and she said, Eva, I am a spiritual leader. And she just started hysterically laughing. She thought it was the funniest thing. She said, no, I don't want to be with those people. But she was strong and strong-willed and did so many wonderful things for all of us in the writings that she did, and her gift of hospice.
Yeah,
she was the one that started hospice,
Mm-hmm.
and what a gift that is.
Yeah, and just for some context, maybe for those that haven't heard of her, she was the originator, creator of the 5 Stages of Grief, and a seminal book called On Death and Dying that is, I think, became required reading for all doctors in terms of how to really, she's the first one to talk about death from a medical standpoint and being able to actually communicate and soothe people as they were going through their transition, because a lot of doctors aren't very good at that, even still today. And certainly back in the early 70s, very few of them had any real skills that they'd learned other than their own innate human, compassion. So.
And I realized that at the beginning when I was talking about, I said Elizabeth Hicks instead of Esther Hicks. I was thinking about.
You were tapped into Elizabeth.
Yeah, it was Elizabeth. Because I just went through all of this. And so I've been reading all the materials about, death and dying and what you see, what to expect, that kind of thing. Because I wanted to know what I was seeing. The different stages and that kind of stuff. So, I did a lot of research and definitely her name comes up. Plus my dad was in hospice, so she's, like you said, she started hospice, and what a journey. I want to ask Ferris real quick. Ferris, you said that you weren't visited by your brother or your sister, right?
No. I was visited by my mother.
You were?
A few times, yeah. But not by my brother or my sister. Excuse me. I was with my mother when she passed, and was the only one that was with her. And she gave me some good advice several times afterwards. Marcus, you mentioned that
your sound's kind of going in and out.
Oh,
Ferris.
is it? I'm sorry. I'll get a little closer here. Is that better?
Yeah, we can hear you good. We hear you well.
Okay. I start talking and then my voice goes down. That's what's happening, I think. You mentioned that doctors haven't dealt with death much, philosophically, I guess I should say, before Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And I think maybe that's because they viewed death as a failure.
Well, they viewed it as death.
Yeah.
As opposed to the rebirth that it is.
Yeah. But I've known quite a few medical people that have made the turn.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think?
And they have.
Yeah. Don't you think there's a real shift in all of this taking place?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We were talking last night with Theo, one of our mentoring programs, with a young lady who's a leader in the emerging leader in tech, and really in high tech, and she was sharing with us in this private forum that we all have that the commentary that was being spoken from the stage, and it was super conscious commentary that was happening about the shifting, beliefs and everything that's going on in our world from an awakened standpoint. This was in a business conference, right? But it's happening all around the planet, Ferris. I mean, people are awakening. Doctors are. I am hardly a medical doctor, but nor have I had much experience with them. Certainly not not at the point of making the transition. But the fact is that I think they have to get better at being able to communicate. I think that the reason that most people are afraid to talk about death is because they're personally afraid of death themselves. They fear dying. So how do you comfortably talk with somebody about dying when you yourself fear it? It's difficult, I'm sure, if not impossible. So perhaps this shift that you're talking about is just a shift in general, a general awakening of humanity to the reality is of that we are in fact more than our physical bodies, and we do in fact survive physical death. And if you've been fortunate, like we all have, to have had so many different experiences to confirm that, to give ourselves that evidence, it makes it so much easier to talk with other people. When Sheila and I have done hospice work in the past, it's not only just an incredible blessing, obviously, to be present for that, but it's also really comforting for us to be able to comfort others in that, because we don't have any fear of death. We have no fear of death. And I think if people don't fear death, they're not going to fear living too, So.
Well, Sheila, you've had that near-death experience. I've had a near-death experience, and I think I don't know if you have, Marcus, or not.
I have not had a near-death experience. I've had a number of out-of-body experiences. So I've experienced myself as more than my physical body, but I've never had a near-death experience like you guys have had. No.
Yeah, and it really changes you forever. And mine wasn't as profound as yours, Sheila, but it certainly took away the fear, because before that I had a fascination with death, but I also feared it. Mm-hmm. And after that, I have never had that fear again. It just... I had a different understanding.
Yeah, I don't fear it either. And what I realized in my near-death experience, it's a choice. Mm-hmm. I could have chosen to leave. It was a choice, and I asked to stay. Like I said, hey, God, give me a job. I'll do anything. Had God given me a roster of things to do, I don't know if I would have chosen the one I have today, because it was in 1969, and these things weren't openly talked about. But I'm certainly grateful that I made that choice, and that I said yes to this work. I just love sharing Theo's wisdom with all who have ears to hear, because we are also benefited by it.
And your work, the work that you and Marcus and of course Theo have done, have helped people like me to really tap into a gift that's always been there, but that we haven't fully known how to embrace. And for those of you who are listening that have been to workshops with Sheila and Marcus, then you know the power of their work and how that brings those gifts to the forefront. You really give us a safe place to allow that to happen, because it's a gift anyone can. Everybody has it. It's just whether or not we choose to tap into it or not, just like any gifts.
Yes, and a lot of people are just afraid of it, because they're afraid that something they'll get taken over, or they'll lose themselves in some way. So one of our greatest pleasures is supporting people in their opening and their awareness of the really master beings that they are, and utilizing all their intuitive gifts. When I opened up, I didn't have anybody but the angels to mentor me, which was great. But I knew at that time I wanted to be a mentor for others, because I knew if I was able to do it, I knew everybody was able to do it, and to tap into in whatever way psychologically and emotionally comfortable for us, whether it's automatic writing or clairaudience, hearing messages, or visionary clairvoyance, or just sensory perceptivity, that visceral feeling that we get in that knowingness. So it's in supporting others to open to that, and as you have done, Cindy, is just such a pleasure and really a privilege to be a part of someone's opening. And you mentioned Esther Hicks before. It was, and to be a little part of the work that she's done in the world and the people that she has touched has been a gift.
Yeah, and like I said, I pick up the book when I was told to read it again, and I started reading it, and right away she's telling the story of you and how this all came to be, and she just honors that
Yes.
gift that you have that helped her awaken hers. So there you go, everybody. You too can be on this journey yourself. I want to take a moment before Theo comes and just check in with questions. Let's check in with the Zoom questions and the Facebook questions. Ferris, do you have any Facebook questions? We'll start there. And Marcus.
Well, we've definitely got the Zoom questions. There's a lot of good ones in here, and we definitely invite, and they're all on topic. Thank you guys, and we'll invite you to continue to submit them, and we'll get to as many as we possibly can out of the Q&A here in the Zoom.
Okay, and Ferris, people on Facebook are wondering why it's not coming through. Is it coming through?
Ferris, you're muted out too.
Sorry about that. It's coming through for me.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
All right, maybe it just didn't start for a moment. Okay. All right, yeah, it's working.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, everything looks good there.
As
So
advertised.
do we have any questions? And for those of you, go ahead, Ferris.
Okay. Sorry about that. I went to check on Facebook to make sure it's working, and I accidentally turned the sound on, and I was getting really confused because I was hearing lots of voices.
Oh, okay.
And they weren't from the ether. They were.
It wouldn't surprise me at all, Ferris, if that was happening.
No, it wouldn't surprise me either. I guess, let me see here. Angela wants to know, she lives a long way from her dad, and her dad just passed away, and she was really surprised. And looking back on it, she says she didn't pick up on the hints that he was giving that he was going to be leaving. And she's wondering why she didn't pick up on that. She's feeling like she was being selfish and ignoring it subconsciously, and she's feeling pretty guilty about that. How do you deal with that?
Well, we can certainly ask Theo about that, but that's something we do to ourselves. Guilt is the gift that keeps on giving. Just beating ourselves up.
Right.
But I'm sure her father doesn't want her to feel guilty at all. And what I was told with my dad when he passed, he waited till everybody was gone. He was a very private man, and then he left. And the nurses at hospice said that's not unusual, especially if someone's very private. They want, and my mother did as well. So it's kind of like what Cindy said, that that when you left, your mother left when she was by herself because people were holding on, or your grandmother.
My grandmother. Yeah.
Your people were holding on to her, and that happens, So the fact that he may not have been giving her any signals at all to pick up on.
Yeah. Or he may have been saying goodbye without asking her to be there.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
And the one thing we've been confirmed on over and over, and there's two sides of this coin, Ferris. One is that when in a situation like what we're talking about right now, the deceased continues to confirm over and over and over again when these questions come up, and you may hear them in the questioning today with Theo, the deceased doesn't hold anything but love, but just total unconditional love for us, those of us that are still present. And the other side of that coin, which is always interesting too, is that when parents pass away, when parents make their transition, that maybe haven't been the greatest parents, or maybe we're not loving in this lifetime, and those children may have felt that there was a real unresolved nature to their relationship. We hear over and over again in those circumstances, man, if I knew what I know now, it would have been very different. Right. So once I've gotten over into here on the other side, so to speak, and I understand my true nature, and I understand what opportunities I had to tell you that I loved you and to show love for you, I would have done it very differently if I had to do all over again. And so there's some healing within that as well, on that side of the coin for those that are, feeling like, they didn't give them all they had, right? But the fact of the matter is, with what they had to work with, they gave them everything they had, and there's some healing and peace in that, I think.
Any other questions?
That was a good question, Angela.
Yeah, that was a great question.
And we've got a lot of them coming in the Q&A. If you want,
we've got a slew of them.
I can hold these for Theo if you want me to, guys. There's kind of most of these are. I'd like to confirm from Joe Marino that my mom is doing okay after her transition today. Wow! So Joe's mom just passed. So I kind of want to save these, for Theo, if that's okay. Kathy wants to know about how mentioned the caregivers can take on energy from the deceased loved ones. What does this mean, and how does a caregiver maintain, their best health? So these are really powerful questions that I personally would like to hear what Theo has to say about them.
Yeah, that would be great.
So are you ready?
We're ready.
Yeah. All right, here we go. It is the beginning, is it not?
It is. Welcome, Theo.
We are appreciative of the opportunity to be of service unto you. You may ask.
Well, Theo, on behalf of everybody, we're very grateful to have you here with us, as always. And as you know, we're talking about the transition process, being the caregiver, communicating with deceased loved ones, all things kind of multidimensional today. How would you like to, what would your opening messages be for us today?
So it is birth to birth. It is not birth to death. The transition from the physical body into the multidimensionality of the soul, the wholeness of the soul, if you would. So you birth into your human existence by choice. You choose to be in this earthly plane. And the body itself is your earth suit to navigate this planet. And when that is complete, then one leaves the physical body into the multidimensional, fuller expression of the soul. Energy is constant, it is only form that changes. You may ask?
What is that like, Theo? Birthing into the multidimensionality of our soul, how do we what can you share with us so we can understand how that experience is?
It is exquisite. There is light. There is music that is exquisite. The songs of the angels. There's a meeting of those that you love and are loved by. For there is no loss, ultimately, energetically, in eternal souls, remaining connected, and the love connects and is ever present.
How do our beliefs that we hold at the time of our physical death, Theo, affect the actual experience that we have of transitioning into the next dimension?
It affects your perception a bit. But when, in actuality, that is prior or when you think about it, but as one moves into the process of birthing out into the multidimensional experience and leaving the body, there are glimpses. There's a walking in both worlds. There's an awareness. So it is not a shock, should we say, for most, unless it is by an event that is instantaneous, and then there's a bit of an adjustment. However, the process of those that have the process of walking in both worlds then are comforted by that knowing and the experience of it. You may ask?
Yeah. Theo, we've heard, I'm going to turn over to Cindy after this, we've heard you say many times, and it can be very shocking to some, that every death is a suicide. Can you explain that?
We know that word is shocking, for it's misunderstood. The events of a suicide is difficult for understanding by many. For beings judge from the lenses from where they see their own life experience, not of the other person. However, what we mean by that is when the soul leaves the body, it is by choice. It is not demanded of them. You often hear of a miraculous healing, yes?
Right.
Much as the Sheila experienced. And then there is that moment of choice for all to depart. And that is why we speak such as this, but we shock because we wish you not to judge the transition of anyone and the means by which they leave their bodies. You may ask?
Cindy?
The question that I have is around my dad and what's holding him here. He's had many, many off-ramp opportunities, and he never takes them. He always ends up being here for longer than we thought he would be here, and he defies what the doctors say again and again. So that's my question, is why is he still here?
He's not yet complete. And he wishes that consciousness, that presence of the full experience, of which he would have anyway, but he thinks in his conscious mind that he would not. Do you see?
Mm-hmm.
But the soul always knows. But he's winding down. He's reviewing his life. And he will choose perfectly the time. It's just like birth. The soul chooses its time of birth to enter the physical body as well. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
That's why a baby can be born early from the timing that has been described by the medical professionals, or it can be late in their perception. Yes? But it's neither early nor late from the soul's perception. It is perfectly on time. You may ask?
When he saw the light, you always hear about the light, go towards the light, that opening. What is the light?
The light is the vibrational frequency, and it is light. It is a higher vibration, if you would, of collapsing the time and space and moving into that multidimensional brilliance that is not limited in any way. And it is spoken of as a tunnel for many, or it can be the room in its brilliance and brightness. But it is that exquisite moment of the birth into the other dimension.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like the birthing of an infant, yes?
Mm-hmm.
They too see a light, do they not? Out of the tunnel. It's a birth to birth.
That's beautiful, because, for him, he was in a very dark room. And, to see that light and him keep pointing, where'd that light come from? He kept asking us that. That was, I would question, would you really see the light? So that makes a lot of sense.
Yes. And you can choose to go into it, which he chose not in that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Mm-hmm.
But is comfortable with it now, knowing that that is what it is. Yes?
Mm-hmm. Definitely more comfortable. And he's kept his sense of humor. In fact, when you said, when we leave this earth suit, I could hear him saying in my mind, "Can I have mine taken in?" You know, he just has such a wonderful sense of humor, and I could just hear his voice when you were
Yes.
talking.
And many might feel that way, yes?
Yeah. So beautiful.
You may ask.
Marcus?
Well, I think what I think we were talking about earlier, Theo, about if we don't fear death, we don't fear living, right? How do we what can you say to anyone who might still have some, and there might be several listening to this right now that have a fear of dying, that and most people do, I think, have that fear.
Mm-hmm.
The fear is around pain and the desire for not having pain. But understand this: when there is the exiting of the physical structure, there are those moments where pain is not felt, is taken away, you might say. So many fear that it would be painful. Yes?
We have a question from Joe. Theo, would like to confirm that my mom is doing okay after her transition. Joe Murillo is her name. I'd like to confirm my mom is doing okay after her transition today. Can you give Joe a message?
She's doing very well. Yes? Unencumbered by a body that wasn't serving her. There's freedom and great love. And she will be with you. You will feel her essence and you will smell her scent when she is present, to let you know that the love continues. You may ask.
Yeah, when we transition, we move into our higher we move into our multidimensionality, we have a reunion with our oversoul. Is that a correct statement, so to speak?
Yes, that is true.
And do we then take memories? So how much of our personality survives moving into the next experience from this incarnation, the one that we know so well right now? Now we're merging into the entirety of our being. Tell us about that.
Personality is about the earthly experience in the earth plane. However, all of the lessons and all the knowledge is retained. And there is an assessment of what has been learned and what may be desired to be learned from the human experience. The human experience is very unique because you have a body and you have 5 senses. And you have the ability to utilize all those gifts: the sense of smell, taste, feel, touch. Do you see?
Yeah.
The ability to speak, to listen, to hear, and to be heard. All of these are such gifts that you take for granted in your physical experience, but that's what you've come to experience and to navigate. It's quite the adventure, and your planet is extremely beautiful, and the ability to see that beauty, and of course to interact with each other physically, as we stated, to touch and to feel a touch. Yes?
Yeah. Yeah. Ferris, you got some hands up there, bud?
We sure do. Shall we bring somebody in?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Alexandra, I'm going to bring you in as a panelist, so be ready. Don't be picking your nose when the camera comes on.
There's an asking.
Alexandra, are you there? Alexandra, we can. Oh, she's muted out. Yeah, there she is. She's muted out. Yeah.
Alexandra, where did you go?
Oh, she left at the wrong time to go to the bathroom. That's
Yep.
for sure. Let me share another question comes in from Kathy out of the Zoom here. In the past, I've heard Theo mention that caregivers can take on energy from the deceased loved one. What does this mean, and how does the caregiver maintain their best health?
It's important to understand that you are all empathic. Your energy perceivers. Your body, your physicality, your body is a receiver, and you can take on the energies of others. You can, in an empathetic way, feel the aches and pains from another, particularly if you're close to them. But even if you are not, you may have recognized that you can be completely fine and feeling very strong, and then in an instant be with someone, then absorb their energy and even their emotions. So paying attention to what is yours and what is not is extremely important. And as a caregiver, it is easily done to connect with the one you're caring for. And in your empathetic experience, feel the feelings of what they're feeling in their physical structure. So caring for yourself, radical self-care for a caregiver is important. Doing all the good healthy habits. Meditation is extremely important. Being in water, being in a tub of water, continually washing your hands, moving the energy through. Water is a good conduit to shift polarities when you're holding others' energy. But it's an awareness that's important. You may ask.
If it's okay, I'd like to ask Angela C's question to give her some peace around the guilt that she's feeling right now, if that's okay. I want to just ask Theo, my dad passed away a few weeks ago. This is from Angela C. Surprised me greatly when I look back on it. He'd been telling me and giving me hints for a few months when we talked. I live a great distance away. Why did I not pick up on this? Was it purely selfish ignorance on my part or some soul contract that I would not be with him near the end? I'm really dealing with the guilt on this, Theo.
Understand this. He wants you to know. He wishes you not to worry or feel guilty. He did not want you to feel that you must be there. And he even didn't know he was giving you the hints that you now can see after the fact. He loves you very much. And it was not selfish not to be there or not to have understood the messages or signs that were being given. It was perfect in its imperfection. You may ask.
Yeah, it's all kind of a little bit illogical, isn't it, Theo?
Very illogical.
Yeah.
For what you're working with is no time. It is difficult to understand, but physicists, your scientists understand this, that there is a multidimensional experience of which you are a part. You've embodied into a physical, dynamic physical form that limits you in some ways, but ultimately not, because your soul is much larger than this physical body or experiencing. And as you raise your vibrational frequency to a greater understanding, you can manipulate time if you would. Einstein time. Yes?
Yeah, speak more to that, will you, Theo?
A wrinkle in time. It's interesting that this novel is now present in your experience dynamically, and it is for children, but not only children can learn, for it's very scientifically explained as the collapsing of time and space. we find that the media, that film, brings forth that which is in the consciousness shifting that is necessary for a greater understanding in the human experience of what is happening soulfully. You may ask.
Ferris, I got a ton of great questions here, but I'm going to turn it over to you for a little bit.
Okay. We had to let Alexandra go because she didn't come back. So let's try Claudine. And Claudine, I'm bringing you on as a panelist. There you are.
You may
Hold on.
ask.
Hi, Theo. My mother has currently suffered a stroke and also battling bladder cancer. And I was wondering if she's going to be transitioning soon, like soon as in days or months.
Weeks.
Weeks.
Yes. And you had a sense of this.
Yes. I was wondering, I think I'm doing well emotionally on a conscious level. I don't know how well I'm doing on a subconscious level. I was wondering if you could give me any insight on that.
It's all a process, but stay present in the experience. Don't try to avoid it. And love yourself. Hold yourself steady and care for the self. Self-care.
Okay.
For your mother's doing just fine.
Okay.
Even though she has these issues with the physical body. But just love on her.
Okay.
And you'll notice, because of the stroke and the cancer as well, the mind may wander and her stories may be mixed up. Don't try to correct her.
Okay.
Just
Well,
let her be in that story.
Yeah. I'm currently far away. She's in another country. I'm in Canada and she's in Jamaica, so it makes it a little bit difficult.
You do talk to her, however, haven't you?
Yes, I have been talking to her.
So you can envision her and speak soul to soul.
Okay, that's what I was thinking this evening, to do that.
Yes, and you will connect with her and even have a conversation soul to soul that will be very insightful for you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Theo.
Thanks, Claudine.
Thank you, Claudine.
Thanks.
Okay, a question comes in from Aileen Smith. Theo, how long can we connect after someone transitions? Can we connect with them after many years since their transition?
Yes, again, there's no time. This is difficult to get an intellectual mind around. There is not linear time. You have linear time to navigate life for your appointments and your work and all of those things. But ultimately, on a soul level, there's no time limitation. Energy is constant. It's just form that is changed. And energy to energy, soul to soul, connect. You may ask.
Cindy, you want me to keep going in the Q&A here? Got a lot of great questions.
Yes, I had just one question to going back to the question where someone said, you're taking on the person's energy as they are transitioning. Can you pick that up? And one of the things that I did was I called back all of my energy, Theo, from my dad and from the other people that were in the nursing home. And I sent all his energy back to him. And that was right after I talked to his oversoul, and I just sent his energy back. And I took mine back too, because I could feel myself weakening. And so I just called back my own energy. And then that was part of everything that happened before he rallied.
Yes. And what you will recognize that's important. It's a disentanglement that occurs. So you speak soul to soul and say, I give back to you all your power that you've given me in all time and multidimensional experience, and I return your power to you with love now. And I, and give your name, take back from you their name. All my power I have given you in all time and multidimensional experience, and I take my power back from you with love now.
Oh, that's beautiful. And if there are other people there that there are people that you feel latch onto your energy
Yes.
when you go to those places, and if they were latching onto his energy, can I to ask for that energy even from them to be sent back?
Yes.
Or if they latch onto my energy, can I call it back from them?
Yes.
Okay.
You have the power.
Mm-hmm.
You are master divine beings, and nothing or no one can do anything to you without your permission. Do you see?
I see.
So the disentanglement is excellent, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's honoring each soul. You may ask.
Marcus?
Question comes from Donna. Theo, my sister passed away almost a year ago by suicide. Donna Dathy is her name. My sister passed away almost a year ago by suicide. Is there any insight you can speak about this? I recently received information that she could be on what is termed the Emerald Isle.
It's beautiful to think about, isn't it?
Yeah.
There is such a place. And it's healing. Green, emerald, is healing, isn't it?
Yep.
It's also heart-centered. However, she wants you to know, Donna, that she's doing just fine. And she knew no other way but to release from this incarnation. That was her only option in her mind. And no one could have changed anything. It was for her to do and her choice to make. And she loves you very much. You may ask?
And Theo, wouldn't that be true pretty much in all cases of suicide, that there really isn't anything anybody can do once the soul makes that choice, huh?
Correct.
Yeah.
For many who are what they call survivors of that, left behind, if you would, to some degree, oftentimes think, what could I have done? How could I have made a difference? How could I have changed it? Understand this, the soul is in charge. And you cannot judge another's path, for you know not what the soul's desired learning is. Love them on their way.
Right. And Ferris, before I turn it over to you, I got to get this one question in from Elena here. Theo, is it possible to clear out the karmic contract with the parents long before their passing if they're not open to the spiritual way of thinking and are stuck in their limited beliefs? Since I cannot change their attitudes, I would like to at least clear the karma so there's no need to carry the emotional load over to the next life.
Of course there is. It's called soul integration. Releasing beliefs that you've adopted from them as your own about who you are, about your self-worth. It's more about you, releasing you. And then you can forgive them. You will not change history, but you'll change your mind. Your perceptions will change. And know in that the soul contracts will be complete.
From lifetime to lifetime.
Yes.
Yeah.
This
So
is a time of completion for years and years and years and years of incarnations.
There's really no such thing as karma, is there, Theo?
Karma is only opportunities of growth and not a debt to be paid. You may ask.
Paris?
Let's bring someone else in here. And Abby Stone, I'm going to bring you up. And it should bring you on the screen in just a second here. Okay, Abby, where are you? Well, it's not coming, so we'll try Carol.
Okay, and while we're bringing up Carol, I would like to ask a question. You know, I really love that you said, you know, soul contracts are completed from life to life. So from each rebirth that we go through, each cycle, that is completed, and it's not something that we have to carry forward into another lifetime.
There are influences from the soul fragments from other times that the influence or the learning is carried forward, or the desired awarenesses to complete. However, groups incarnate together to support each other's growth. Soulmates, if you would. We hear soulmate often given in a romantic sense, and that can be true. But soul family gathers together. They're on the same frequency and vibration to assist each other's choice of learning. Some can be very with ease and grace, and others very constricted and contrasting. Those are the greater teachers, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
For if it is easy, one takes for granted. But if there is challenge, that's where you learn the most, isn't it? About yourself and others.
Mm-hmm.
So those soul contracts of growth are excellent. But when they are complete, there's a recognition of that completion. Because the beliefs then are changed that are in the structure of that learning. You may ask.
Looks like Carol left us. If you have your hand raised and you've decided that you don't want to ask your question, there she is. She's back.
Yay!
Hi, Carol. You are live now.
Hi.
You may ask.
Yes. You know, I have dear hearts, grandparents, of course, but also my mom and dad and a really good friend, Seal, who've been on the other side for 20 plus years or in that neighborhood. And yet in my heart, they're still so important to me. And I want to actually rely on them still and call upon them. But is that annoying to be like on the other side, have a very grown up, you know, whatever. I just want to know about the relation still. Are they annoyed that I might still seek them out? And what is the parent-child or dear friend relation after they've transitioned, you know, beyond a lifetime?
Love is constant. And as we stated, groups incarnate to support each other's growth. And those relationships are eternal. And no, they are not annoyed at all. They are grateful for that connectivity and to be of assistance to you. For it assists them as well.
How does it assist them?
It's all about the love. It is the energy of love that's emitted on both sides, isn't it? And as with the angelic presence that is about you, in the asking it is given. So when you ask, they are there to give and are pleased that you've asked.
How can I give back so that I feel fully reciprocal?
You are, just in your asking. For it is, again, all love, you see. You may ask.
Is it also true with our dear animal companions on the other side? And what happens if we reincarnate in the middle of all this?
They have souls and they're connected to the human souls. And they do incarnate again like you do. That is why you can have a beloved pet animal that transitions, changes, passes, as you would say, and then comes back at a later time in another body, and you recognize the personality. Yes? For they are connected to your human experience, soul to soul.
So if somebody reincarnates but not with me, can we still connect from a former time together, even if we're both in new lifetime somewhere else?
Yes. Energy is constantly formed, changes, and those connections are eternal.
Carol, thank you. You just asked questions for several people.
Yeah, thanks, Carol. It's good to see you.
You too. Thank you.
Yeah. Got a question here. I think that maybe a lot of people can relate to, Ferris. This comes from Anonymous. Theo, does someone with dementia or Alzheimer's, how is their transition affected by this disease as they transition from the physical into the multidimensional?
That is part of the human body, the brain. And that's where the dementia or Alzheimer's is. It's brain injury, actually. There are parts of the brain that die. However, that does not affect the soul in its transition. It is fully aware. It is only the body that is limited, you see, and that is why so often you hear from those who have made the birth into their multidimensionality say they are happy to be released from a body that is not functioning in its highest state for them. Know that their physical body can be kept alive by machines, as you know, by medical marvels, you might say. However, the brain cannot. That is where the soul resides. The soul is what gives the brain life. So when there's dementia or Alzheimer's, it is the way of the body shutting down to release the soul. It happens in different forms for each one, yes?
Do when we make the transition from Alzheimer's or dementia, Theo, do we then immediately transition back into the remembrance of who we are?
Yes. And in those moments of transition, there's full awareness and clarity that happens.
Yeah. So it's just the limitations of the physical brain then that are, when we're still alive, that hold us back from having access to those memories at that time.
However, there are many that recognize and are with those who have dementia or Alzheimer's in their crossing, and they become very lucid in those moments of walking in both worlds.
Right. Kind of like Sheila's mom, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. And my dad. I mean, it's a similar story, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That walking in both worlds.
You may ask.
I have a question. If someone has dementia and they channel, how does one affect the other?
They're completely open and bringing forth information, yes?
Mm-hmm.
So the higher self is bringing forth that information.
So it overrides the dementia.
Yes. You may ask.
Theo, we've had a lot of people writing in, and this is something that we've really kind of avoided. There have been so many murders and mass murders lately. I'm assuming that these are all soul contracts, but what is their purpose for those of us that are left here, and how should we react?
They are teachers to bring awareness to the necessity of changes, to change your world, to change your laws. The old structures do not work at all. And new is being birthed in this fifth dimensionary energy. So one might say, in an old terminology, they are martyrs for change.
Mm. Did they come in together
They did.
to do this? Okay. Because it felt that way to me.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you tell us more about that, Theo, about souls incarnating together, and then also maybe bring us into the end of life as well? Do souls leave together?
They do. There are certain windows of opportunity of departure. You will hear that in conversation, when there's a window open of many leaving at that point in time. Just in conversation you could hear, or in mass as you have observed. Yes? It could be a plane crash. It could have been, as you spoke of, the murders or mass shootings. But there is that exit moment that occurs. An opening, if you would, universally speaking. You may ask.
The last question I just want to grab from the Zoom Q&A, guys, I think it would be important to ask, is from Melissa Olvid. And Melissa says, my son Ben died suddenly and unexpectedly, Theo, and it was traumatic for me. We were so close. I want to know he's okay. It is so difficult. Was it a soul contract, and how can I go on?
It is a soul contract, and he loves you very much. And he knows your pain. But he wants you to know that you are eternally connected soul to soul. So that he will not leave you and will be connected to you. You will have messages from him. But it was his time, his soul's time to depart the physical body. And in time, you will share your story to assist others, to be a way shower for them in the experiences that you've had. You may ask.
Ferris? Or Cindy?
Jeff wrote into Facebook, and he wants to know, he's been told that the white light tunnel that people talk about so much is the journey of the consciousness takes from the pineal gland to the threefold flame in the heart at the moment of death. Is that correct?
You could say that, yes.
What else could you say?
The light is that portal in the dimensions to travel through. Or some could say on, energetically.
So it's not necessarily restricted to a certain part of the body, or...
Oh, many would say this, wouldn't they? But that is a medical or a scientific point of view, but nobody really knows, do they? Until they experience it.
Not until it's too late to tell the rest of us.
So many have theories, don't they? But they're only that. But you're living in a time now, you've come to be incarnate in a time of fifth dimensionary energy that allows you a glimpse into what we're talking about. as you do your meditations, as you alter your conscious state, you can recognize multidimensionality. You don't have to die or birth into the other dimension to experience it now. The masters that you are, the divine essence of you, the soul that you are is much larger than your physical existence, and that awareness is yours now.
Thank you.
So the pineal gland, of course, is physical, and you're talking about fifth dimensional energy. So I understand, or at least I think I do, why it wouldn't be part of the pineal gland, but the threefold flame, I guess I don't know enough about that to
It's a
really
concept.
understand how that plays.
It's a concept.
Mm.
But it is heart to mind. The heart is the seat of the soul.
Yeah.
And so when the soul leaves the body, it can be either through the crown, and that's what one might say the pineal gland, or can leave through the heart chakra. It is only by choice.
It's really not uncommon those two places in the physical body are the places we actually leave our body when we're having out-of-body experiences. So that seems to make sense.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Very.
One is just a little more permanent than others, evidently, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marcus, I'd kind of like you to tell folks about the retreat y'all have coming up soon.
Can we do this first? Let's finish with Theo. So
Okay.
Sheila, so if that's okay with you guys, and then we can have Sheila be a part of that conversation.
All right.
Yeah, Cindy, are we final messages from Theo?
The final thought for those of us who have people that either have just transitioned, we're feeling for people that transitioned, like all the children that died in Florida, or, someone close to us is about to transition. What can we do to support them, either if they're on the other side or if they're about to be on the other side? How can we support them as well as supporting ourselves?
So the support is all with love. And for some, it may be forgiveness. So it is to recognize that you can change beliefs that limit you. And beliefs can be changed. Events won't be, they're history. But your perception of them can change. And to be done with love. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
And understand that grieving is a part of the fantasy of what could have been. An expectation unmet. But know all things have been met in that time. And trust that. You are complete with your asking.
We are. Do you have any concluding messages for us today, Theo, at all?
And the information goes on, and the insights to be known. Trust your knowing. You are all magnificent master beings, coming into a fuller realization of that, and are connected at all times. And in the asking it is given. God's love unto you.
And unto you, Theo.
Good day.
Good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Theo.
Hi, Ferris.
And she's back.
Love that grin.
Usually she says hi, Marcus. So I didn't get the last. I didn't get the last word to get on the video there, right?
Hey. Either, so
that's funny.
Ferris just has that great smile.
Now I can't wait for you to ask Sheila and myself that question, Ferris.
Yes. do you want to tell us about the retreat? And shall I bring up the little graphic you've got?
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Okay.
Sheila, you were Ferris was asking about the art of relationship retreat.
Oh, yes.
Now,
Well,
now
go
you
ahead,
gotta,
Marcus.
well, I'm going to, but now you got to get me off the screen because I'm on the full screen, and you've got the.
There we go.
There you go. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, and then Sheila, pipe in here. Obviously, we April 13th through the 15th in Marina Del Rey, California, outside LA, guys. We are going to be hosting the Art of Relationship, a weekend retreat with Theo. Many of the things. This is a 2.5 day real immersion with Theo in all things relationship related, including all of the things that we've been talking about here today. In addition to the relationship, the primary relationship being the relationship with the self, loving and really owning our divinity, the sacred nature of our being, and then having these relationships that emanate from that. We're talking about reframing family history, manifesting the one in our lives, manifesting deeply, soulfully connected, friendship relationships, romantic relationships, manifesting spiritual community, and all of the relationships that we have in our lives leading to just a peaceful heart is what we're talking about. Sheila, we've watched transformation take place at the last retreat that we had. That just kind of blew our minds a little bit. Afterwards, the response we got back from everybody was that virtually everybody had these amazing transformations and healings because we all have relationships, including the one with ourselves, that need just that, don't you think?
Absolutely. We all want love in our lives. We all know that we have a lot of love to give. But what we learn and experience and understand is how to receive it. Like you said, Marcus, looking for the primary relationship. But we have relationships everywhere in our lives because we are relational. We are human species. We are animals who want to be in community, want to have the special one, want to be having good family relationships. And it's all about love, loving the self first and foremost, and then loving others as yourself. And so we talk about all relationships, work relationship, family, children, parents, primary partners, and also about honorable separation and how that can be, that there can be that gift and love still in that when a soul contract is complete. So it's a fantastic retreat when we recognize and experience the art of relationship.
Yeah.
And I want to give everyone that URL. It's energizedlivingtoday.com/Theo. And Ferris, does that matter if it's in caps or not? It's THEO. Is that case sensitive?
No, it doesn't matter. I just did it that way because it looks good.
Oh, okay. It does look good. Okay. And I just want to say, what you just said, Sheila, is so important. When we're at the end of a journey with someone, that conscious uncoupling that we have with someone, that consciously disconnecting your energy with somebody, to me, should never mean that we diss the other person, make them less than, because there's always two sides to the story. And if the journey is ended, the journey is ended. And, for me, I think I see people beating each other up. And it can get pretty nasty. So what I love about what you're doing is for those who are going through that and you don't want it to go to that point. I mean, that's so horrible for your children. I've done it, so I know how that feels, and because I didn't know better. But it would be a very different story if I went through that today. So I think that you're consciously bringing that awareness to people is huge, huge.
Well, it's all done with love.
Mm-hmm.
It's the disentanglement we were talking about that we can do. And as Theo says, in everything that's happened to us, in all our relationships, we've chosen to participate. Theo says there's no victims, only volunteers. That we're all volunteers, that we step forward for our highest learning and good. But in every situation, circumstance, and condition, there's a gift, no matter how hard it is. And they continually ask us to look for the blessing in the gift. And if we do that with all of our relationships, we see the gift of our interaction with everybody and the blessings in that, no matter how difficult it can be. And when we turn that, the dial of that just a little bit, the trajectory of our life changes.
Mm-hmm.
And what we draw into our life changes as well.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we focus on in the beginning of this retreat, Cindy, is to really, and I would say this to anybody who just wants to fall deeply in love with themselves, to feel enough all the time, and then watch how that emanates out to all of the relationships in our lives. And we get into healing from betrayal, and we talk about forgiveness, but it's such an immersive experiential weekend. There's such transformation that takes place. So if you guys are looking to up-level anything in your life around relationships at all, you're trying to manifest the love of your life, you want to manifest more soulful, connected relationships, community, and to heal from the past, get into a really great balance emotionally around all of the relationships in your life, including work relationships, everything else, you'll walk away from this weekend with some real transformation will take place. And that's been our experience. So we just want to invite you guys, take a look at it. And if you're feeling compelled, come join us, because it's going to be a great weekend. So we want to thank you very much for, sharing, Cindy, the opportunity, and Ferris, the opportunity for people to participate in that weekend, because it can be real life changing.
And there is a link that Ferris just dropped in the Q&A box over on the side there. So, or depending on your technology, on the side, I don't know which side, or below, depending on your technology, but click on that link and it will take you there and read all about it. And Gary and I forgot about this. I actually have a nephew that is getting married that weekend, or I would be there. As you know, Gary and I went through quite a transformation in our own relationship, where we thought we were going to be uncoupling, and then we ended up staying together, and that's another whole story. But this work helps people that, you reach rocky points in your relationship, you might be able to work past them and have the gift that Gary and I have together, where we're so in love now that we're going to renew our vows. And it's just, we never thought we'd be there. It's beautiful.
It's a really good story.
It is.
For another webinar, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And so that's what you have to look forward to in doing this conscious work. So I just want to encourage you, all of you out there that are thinking, is this for me? Yes. If you're asking, then yes. The answer is yes. So again, that URL is energizedlivingtoday.com/Theo.
We'll have a lot of fun.
Yes.
Yeah. And it is fun.
You meet some awesome people. Yeah.
And
well, starting with Sheila and Marcus.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
was just going to say,
I didn't want to say that.
People, I love it when I can say to our community, to our soul gang, go to one of these events, because I know they'll be in good hands.
Mm-hmm.
You two are remarkable people, and you're so loving. That's the moment someone meets both of you, they will feel your sincere love, and they will know that they are safe in whatever it is that they're experiencing, so they can really, really get into the meat of the whole experience, just really be in a safe environment. So
there's an energetic
exchange.
Thank you, Cindy. Yeah,
yes.
There's an energetic exchange. Being live with Theo is unique and profound, and so thank you for all that.
You just took the words out of my mouth. I was just going to say, folks, if you have not experienced Theo in the flesh, sort of, so to speak, it's transformative.
It is.
It is. Well, if you can help transform my left brain husband. Wow.
That was a pretty good accomplishment.
That was huge. That was huge.
Leighton,
Didn't ever want to hear a word about this stuff, and now he asks all the time.
Ferris,
great.
I want to just read this. This came in from Leighton. Says that page can't be found. EnergizedLivingToday.com.
Okay, let me see what's
Theo.
happened here.
Make sure that it's not case sensitive.
Yeah,
Ferris.
thank
And I'm
you,
going to,
Leighton.
Oh, you know what? I wonder if that T made a difference.
Maybe do it all lowercase.
Yes, it did. For some reason, I thought the browser would change it, but it didn't. So
it's all lowercase.
It's all lowercase. Sorry, guys.
Leighton, thank you, man. We appreciate you.
Yeah, really.
Feedback here.
thank you. So everybody just type that in again, energizedlivingtoday.com/Theo. And Ferris, we can set up a forward, so if they do happen to put caps in there, it'll work as well. So we'll
we'll have it on the replay page and on Facebook if you want to go catch the Facebook Live video.
Well, thank you, Rosemary. First entry worked for me. Good. So we're
okay. Great.
And Leighton says that was it. Okay, great, guys.
Good.
Okay.
Awesome.
I think that's browser dependent.
Well, there we go.
Yeah, that may be.
Whatever that means.
Well, I'm glad you're all going there and looking at it, and I hope we
Yes.
see you in person.
Yeah.
And we'll miss you, Cindy and Gary.
I know. I wish that we could come so much. We would love to. And I think that his nephew, if we didn't go to his wedding, he would probably be very hurt by that. So.
That would definitely affect that relationship.
Yes,
we don't want
yes,
that
it would. So,
well, next time.
Next time. Yes, we definitely will. We're looking at you. You've got another trip, and when that gets a little closer, we'll have you come back on and talk about that. And that's going to be pretty exciting. We're looking at that too.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that's good news. That's good news too.
Yeah, I would love to come.
Yeah.
Love to.
Oh.
Leighton says, hope to see you. Leighton says, hope to see you folks too. I would love to go. We are extending a personal invitation to you, Leighton. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. Please come.
Yes.
Thank you for having us. It's always a delight to be with you, Cindy and Ferris. Every time, it's just so much fun. And, much love to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Well, much love to you both, and thank you so much for being here, for our soul gang, for everything that you shared today, all of your deep wisdom, for Theo, for being open to this opportunity, for Theo to work through you, Sheila, and Marcus, for you to do the work that you do to help move the conversation and bring in those really important questions that sometimes people can't form on their own. Mm-hmm. And you do that so exquisitely. So I thank you both. You're just two of my favorite people. I love you both. And Ferris, you know what? I love you too.
Hey, it was great having Ferris with us today, too.
What's not to love?
We love you, Ferris. We do. And we love you, Cindy. And thank you again, guys. It's been great.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
And thank you all for joining us.
Yes.
Bye
for
everybody.
Now.
You bet. Yeah, thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you so much. And until next time, everyone, namaste.
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 And I send you all light.